Alright, I'm going to do a short Autoland demonstration. The request came from someone on the internet. So today's Autoland demonstration we'll give is going into Chicago O'Hare Airport into runway 32 left, and we're going to crank the visibility down to roughly about 3/4 of a mile with snow, wind, icing, and turbulence. So the first thing you want to do as you prepare for any approach to any airport is to make sure that you have the required charts on board. So in this case I have a chart which I've downloaded from airnav.com. This is something that's pretty easy to do in the United States. If you want to just go to any particular airport, you just type the ICAO code in for the airport. So go to airnav.com, click airports, and in this case type KORD for O'Hare, and you will be able to pull up O'Hare. If you scroll down on this chart, first thing you'll recognize that you'll have to enter in for your Autoland approach is you have to dial in the runway localizer frequency. In this case it's just 108.95, and also set the approach course on your aircraft 323 degrees. Typically of every approach sheet, whether it's generated by the FAA or Jeppesen or your regional AIP or AIS department, government department, you'll notice what is the minimum altitude for the various different approaches that you're using. So for instance, in this case, for an ILS approach versus localizer versus a circling approach, here for runway 32 left, we're noticing here that our decision height is down to 854 feet. So basically what happens is you have to make your decision if you're going to land at 200 feet or so, or 200 feet or 3/4 of a mile visibility. So the main thing that we're concerned with here is if the visibility at the airport is below minimums, you should definitely pick an alternate airport for your landing. In this case, for our Autoland scenario, we have the visibility set for exactly 3/4 of a mile. So we should break out of the clouds roughly about 3/4 of a mile or so away from O'Hare. Okay, so now we're actually on the approach into O'Hare runway 32 left. We have the heading frequency set for 108.95 along with the course heading of 323 degrees. First thing we want to do is go ahead and set our auto brake setting to stop us on the runway, as well as we will go ahead now and we will set our auto spoilers to pop up upon landing at the airport. As with any approach, we want to go ahead and calculate our approach speeds. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and select approach. We want to go ahead and calculate our approach speeds. So now we see our speed for final approach would be 136 knots. In this particular case, normally if we were landing in calm conditions, our approach speed would be 136 knots at flat 30. However, since the winds right now are gusting 16 to 24, you want to go ahead and calculate out, obviously you want to understand the winds before you land, and then you want to calculate out what your final VREF speed is going to be. So in this case, we take 1/2 of the constant wind component, which is 16 knots, so it's going to be, divide that by 2, that's 8. So 136 knots plus 8 knots gives us a speed of 144, and then you want to add all of the gust components. So winds are 16, gusting 22, so the difference there is 8, so we want to add an additional 8 knots to the 144 knots, which gives us a final approach speed of 152 knots. So VREF for our demonstration will be 152 knots. Now that we have our approach speeds calculated, we also want to make sure that in the decision height area we enter in the appropriate decision height so that we get the approaching minimums and minimums altitude call out as we are on final approach. In general, if you do not see the runway by your decision height, you should execute a missed approach. Next, we want to ensure that we are descending on schedule. So until you actually capture the localizer and the glide slope, make sure that you're paying attention to your approach chart to understand exactly where you need to be so many miles out. So in this case, I'm descending for 8,000 feet by the Ford intersection, which is approximately at the 23.9 DME. From there, we go down by the next intersection, 21 miles at 7,000 feet, 15 miles, 5,000 feet, 12 miles at 4,000, 9 miles at 3,000 feet, until we get to the jockey intersection at the 7.9 DME, 2,900 feet. You want to make sure that you're paying attention here, because if you are not descending on schedule, if you're too low, there's a good chance you're going to hit terrain. So you want to make sure that you're descending on schedule. So right now, descending towards the Ford DME, or Ford intersection, to make sure that we're 8,000 feet by the 23.9 DME. Alright, passing Ford, now going for the next intersection, getting down to about 7,000 feet, continuing our descent on down for the Autoland. And here we are descending on schedule for the CLS runway 32 left Autoland approach into O'Hare. You can see that we have no visibility, and we are descending towards the ILS for runway 32 left at O'Hare. You want to make sure that you have your heading set, and you also want to make sure that you have the GPS nav switch off. You want to make sure that you have the GPS nav switch disconnected and that you're on heading mode, not LNAV or GPS mode, to ensure that you will be able to lock onto the localizer and glide slope. Now here we see the localizer alive and the glide slope is alive, so I'm going to go ahead and select approach mode. Okay, now we are locked onto the localizer. Ability is still down to 3/4 of a mile. Typically you want to keep your speed up until about roughly the 8 DME marker, okay? Unless otherwise told by air traffic control. Sometimes you'll be told to keep your speed up till about the 4 or the 5 DME before you slow down the final approach speed. So in this case, we're going to start slowing down the VRAF at about 8 miles from the airport. Okay, so now we're going to slow ourselves down to 152 knots. We've already got flaps down in position 15. We're going gear down. And then next we will go we'll take our flaps down, flaps 20, flaps 25, all the way down to flaps 30. So the airplane will slow down as we descend. Gear down, flap set.
500.
Runway lights in sight.
400.
Disconnect the throttles. Fly the throttles manually.
300. 200.
Middle mark.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.